Yeah. Oh, sorry. If you were trying to say something to me, my computer was on mute, so I didn't hear you.
Oh, I said manishma.
Oh, בסדר גמור. תודה. Um,
Oh,
so sorry about being a few minutes late there, folks. We have I'll tell you all in a few seconds. I'll give it one more minute because I said 12:30 and 12:35 is Jewish 12:30. So we will give it one more minute, and then I will tell you about my day. And I also have a special guest on the Sam Spector show, and this evening. All right, it's 12:35. So I will get started. Thank you for joining me again. It's good to see a bunch of you. Sorry for being a little late there. I was going to go up onto the roof because I like being on the roof. And I mentioned to you that we have hundreds, if not thousand people in our hotel right now who are from Sderot, to the city in southern Israel that was has been evacuated and was attacked on October 7th. And anyhow, it was, and so I went up there, and the whole roof was full because they were doing a music performance on there. Um, Something that been doing throughout the time people are here is musicians have been coming and people to do entertainment for the families and folks here. So I was like, oh, this won't work. But anyways, today is day 2 in Israel. So I figured I would tell you a bit about what I was experiencing. Sorry, let me just uh, um, text Jill something really fast, and then I'll get started. Uh, here's give me 1 second. Okay. Um, Sorry. Thank you for your patience. So uh, we met today. Was another really fascinating day and really powerful day. And I'm going to tell you what I heard, what I saw, and also tell you the opinions I heard. I'm not saying that these are my own opinions, but they are Israeli opinions. So we began our day by going to um, uh, this center for hostages and kind of has become the centralized place for folks to hear from the families of hostages and to mobilize around that. You go on to my Facebook, you'll see a lot of pictures I posted. And we met with the former Danny Sheikh, who was the former Israeli ambassador to France. And it was interesting because uh, here were some of the points that he made. He talked about how right now Israel is in a struggle for the PR campaign of this war. And why is that the case? I mean, we've all seen that, and it seems so obvious to us that you should be on the side of Israel. Look what happened on October 7th. Like, this is a no-brainer. And the challenge is that what happened on October 7th happened on October 7th. And what's happening in Gaza right now is still happening on a daily basis. And each day that happens, we are moving further away from October 7th while maintaining, while still being on what's happening in Gaza as a response. And October 7th is getting further and further from the memory of people. Um, but uh, what he said is the one part of October 7th that is still happening is the hostage situation. Now, what Ambassador Sheck talked about was he talked about how the person who started the hostage center operations there was somebody whose daughter survived at the music festival by hiding underneath the bodies of her friends. And you'll hear from um, you'll so interesting the lack of Hamas ceasefire. Talk about that in a second. But anyways, um, what he talked about is how people are coming together. Basically, something I heard over and over and over again was that the Israeli government has been completely incompetent throughout this entire war. And I'll point out a number of ways that Israelis are citing the incompetency of the government. But basically, for so many things, like helping, as I talked about yesterday with our meeting with Avishai Arhami of Wix, it's civilians who are taking over the emergency responses to getting people in hotels, getting people connected with missing loved ones, getting people the things they need because people had to leave their homes near Gaza very, very quickly. And I'll talk about that in a moment. And what this place has done is they have assembled a team of lawyers, diplomats, and PR firms of all volunteers. And the lawyers are working on legal stuff for internationally. The diplomats, like this guy who's a former ambassador to France and former consul general in San Francisco, he's calling every ambassador and every consulate general he knows and every head of state he knows and talking to them about this. And same with the PR firms. But also they are sending people through this organization um, to uh, to meet with there are people who are donating their private jets. I unfortunately don't have that resource, but there are people who are donating their private jets to fly some of the families of hostages around the world to meet with people. There are people who uh, are they're raising money, and El Al is donating tickets, and they're flying these people who are the family of hostages all over the world. Because in social media today, and we're seeing that a lot of this war is taking place via social media. Um, uh, you have they say, if we can get to a celebrity who can share a story, that is just as powerful, if not more so, than a head of state who can share it on their um, social media. And so, and their website, I believe, is bringthembacknow.net. I'll be making a donation from our synagogue to that to help those causes, but it's no public money for any of that. It's all private. And but what they also, something that they're doing with this is putting faces to names. So what's the name of the soldier again who got kidnapped in by Gaza in 2006, by Hamas in 2006. What was his name again? What was his name? Here, if you
Gilead was his first name. The last name
anybody know?
Gilad Shalit.
Gilad
Gilad
Shalit.
Shalit.
Gilead Shalit.
Thank you. And does anybody remember the name of the two guys who were kidnapped by Hezbollah and later their bodies were returned? It turned out they were dead the whole time.
No, no.
I remember. It was so Gilad Shalit was kidnapped by Hamas, and then there were two soldiers who we later found out were killed, but their bodies were captured, and their names were Ehud Goldwasser and Eldad Regev. And I remember that very well because 15 years later or 17 years later, I remember their names because there weren't very many of them. And the whole country rallied around Gilad Shalit. I even know Gilad Shalit's dad's name. It was Noam. And like because he was out and involved in everything. Um, I can't name three of the full names of the 240 people who were captured, who were kidnapped. because it's such a big number that it depersonalizes those people. And so here, Gilad Shalit, it was very personal. We saw his dad every day. His dad, when I was living here, was camped out in front of the prime minister's office, and I'd walk by him every single day and say hello to him. And there are pictures of Gilad Shalit everywhere. But with 240 names, that's a different situation. So they're trying to promote these families, so that way it puts a name to the face. How much money? Um, then after this, and what was really interesting and something I heard a lot from people today was one, any deal with Hamas, whether it is pauses, ceasefire, whatever, must include the hostages. You want humanitarian aid? Uh, okay, release 4 hostages, and we'll do a 2-hour break to get you humanitarian aid, or something like this. But here's what surprised me. So I remember when Gilad Shalit was free, Israel released about 1,100 terrorists, I believe it was, including Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas in Gaza now, who was the architect of all this, uh, for Gilad Shalit. And Yahya Sinwar has said, Hamas folks have said, we will release all the hostages in exchange for all the Palestinian prisoners, which is 6,000. Yeah, I see more being like, no. And of course, that's my reaction too. No way in hell. Look, 6,000, you want us to release 6,000 terrorists? And what does that do? That just puts a bigger incentive and bounty on it. And the overwhelming response I heard from Israelis today was, do it. Go ahead. And that shocked me. That surprised me. And I was like, how can you agree to that? And I'm going to steal what you said to me. I'll credit my friend Neta, who you'll see in a second. But Neta, my friend who you'll talk to in a moment, she was saying it's not rational. It's not rational that people would live right on the border with Gaza. But we have these promises and senses of security and all these things here. And one of the promises of this state is that we will bring people, like, we are responsible for each other, and this war will not be won until all the hostages are brought back. This war will not be over. And you know what? Okay, if we release 6,000 hostages, 6,000 prisoners, rather, Palestinian prisoners, we'll hunt most of them down and kill most of them. But what happened on October 7th wasn't a result of Gilad, of these folks being, the prisoners being released, the terrorists being released from Gilad's elite deal. It was the result of the failure of the Israeli government and the intelligence. So we then, after meeting with Ambassador Sheikh, we met actually with the family of hostages. I want to post some videos on my Facebook of that. We met with an American man who's named Lee, whose brother, he's probably in his 60s or so, I would guess, or maybe early 70s. His brother Keith and sister-in-law Aviva were kidnapped from Kfar Aza by Hamas, and so they were telling us about that and what happened to his brother and about how his brother was kidnapped and all of this. And we're asking, how can we help? And this kind of touched on what Laura said yesterday when Laura said, don't give a penny to the International Red Cross. What they were saying was, anybody who knows anyone who knows anyone who knows anyone at the Red Cross, demand of the Red Cross that they go and visit the hostages. And also, when they're saying we need humanitarian aid in Gaza, we need medical supplies in Gaza. Okay, that's for everyone in Gaza, including the hostages, not just the Palestinians. And on top of that, they said, please tell American Jews that we're worth saving. And these folks were part of the left wing in Israel, and they talked about how they were vilified during the judicial reform protests and called traitors to the country. And now the group that they were with, that they were protesting with, Achim Haneshek, is the one that is mobilizing and getting all of the materials to people who have been displaced from the war, and they're now stepping in for the Israeli government, and they're now helping everyone and are the heroes of Israel. Um, and what was interesting too was the family expressed a lot of anger, and this is something I heard from others, towards the settlers who live in Judea, Samaria, or the West Bank, whatever you call it. Um, and the reason why, and particularly Smotrich and Ben Gavir, the two very, very far right wing folks in the government, and the reason being was that most of the army, I think it was 70% or something, that day, Smotrich, well, the settlers and others had organized a very provocative Simchat Torah and Sukkot celebration in a town called Hawara. And so that basically the entire army went to protect these folks who were behaving provocatively. And the army was not there. Like the guy I heard from yesterday, who talked about how he was for it took 13 hours after Hamas started shooting at him for the army to come and rescue him. Uh, this was, I mean, this was unbelievable, and the army was not present for the South in numbers that could defend the country. And what this family told me is they said, we're angrier at those folks, at the settlers and people like this, than we are at Hamas. Why? Because Hamas doesn't owe us anything. We have no expectations of Hamas. Our government, the army, the settlers, they do owe us something. And so that was very interesting perspective to hear. Following that, we met with Mika Almog. Mika Almog is claimed by many to be one of the protest leaders during the judicial reform protests last year. She doesn't affiliate with any particular movement, but kind of bounces around and is very active on social media. She also has a particularly famous grandfather, a fellow named Shimon Peres. Um, and so she's the granddaughter of Shimon Peres. And uh, she said that so much could have been. She cited a lot of this going back to the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, and said that we could say that all of this, everything that's happened, the Intifada, the whatever, she doesn't think would have happened if it weren't for the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. In her opinion, she represented a pretty far left wing voice, but it was still a good perspective to hear. And so she said, if Rabin had not been assassinated, and if the priority hadn't been the settlers on October 7th, a lot of this could have been prevented. And one interesting thing I heard from her, which I've heard differing opinions, and again, I'm just quoting, I'm not saying that this is my view because I'm going to use a little bit of inflammatory language, is that she said a lot of people are saying once this is over, we're kicking Netanyahu out. And indeed, I have seen around Tel Aviv pictures of Netanyahu that says like this is on your hands and things of that nature. But also and a lot of blame towards and anger towards Netanyahu for this. Um, but she said also that we can't wait for the war to be over to get rid of Netanyahu. Netanyahu needs to go now. And her reasoning, the thing that she said that was kind of provocative, was she said, "Would you, if your child was in kindergarten and you heard midway through the year that the teacher was abusing the child, would you let the teacher finish the school year? And she said that Netanyahu continued to be the prime minister was, in her opinion, was the equivalent of letting a rapist try to be the one to rehabilitate their rape victim, was the language that she used. Pretty inflammatory, but again, that's a local perspective. Um, and so she said the number one thing that we can do in this war is overthrow the Israeli government. Um, and she said that she cited that she saw with Ben Gavir and Smotrich and people like this a comparison, a equivalency between them and Hamas, because she said that they all have a huge messianic vision, and that's what is propelling them. Um, and uh, you know, she said that just the lack of response by the government on October 7th was astonishing. And since then has been astonishing. Um, and what she also said was, we often talk about the failure of the Oslo Accords, and of course her grandfather was the architect of the Oslo Accords, so she might have a vested interest in it. But her perspective was the Oslo Accords didn't fail. They were cut off by the assassination of Rabin. They weren't a failure themselves. You just, but but uh, something else she also says that was also said was uh, that among the far left in this country, something you were hearing was, and that you hear very much on the Palestinian side, is why can't we just have a one state solution where everybody lives in the country? It's a binational country, and everybody is given equal rights, and so on and so forth. And we don't have to have a Palestinian state, Israeli state. We just have one state for everyone where everybody gets along. And they said that October 7th killed that, or for even the far left in this country. That this was that even the far left realized this won't work. And that Netanyahu made it so that Israelis stopped talking. Like that, she pointed out that something that Netanyahu has done over his time in office for pretty much since 2009 is that Israelis have been focusing on other issues, the cost of living, judicial reform, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in the 90s and early 2000s, the Palestinian issue was the number one issue that people brought with them into the voting booth. And Netanyahu had diverted people's attention away from that. Um, so, and she said that right now the hatred towards Netanyahu is so high that um, it took him a long time to meet with the families of hostages because nobody would meet with him. And that Joe Biden showed up in America, in Israel rather, and Joe Biden was giving hugs out. By the way, I've heard from Israelis before this. I heard a lot of crap about Joe Biden and American Jews who, why would they vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump? I have heard since October 7th just resounding praise for Joe Biden, support for Israel in this, and people even crediting Joe Biden with preventing Iran and other countries like this from escalating further, and a lot of credit to President Biden and appreciation President Biden for that. And Biden showed up and was hugging bereaved families and getting photos with them and all these things that Netanyahu was not doing. And so it's because Netanyahu knew that they would bite his head off. And so he did a photo op with people that his folks hand selected who they knew were supporters of his. And then he went down to the south finally to meet with the soldiers, but he only met with the low ranking soldiers who were given orders and were given orders not to say anything dissenting towards him. And they were all required to dismantle their weapons before they could see him, for fear that one of them would shoot him. Um, okay, so then uh, after that, I'm almost done, and then I'm going to turn it over to my friend, summing up my day. After that, we didn't hear from a speaker. We actually helped. We went to the expo center, like the convention center here in Tel Aviv, and went to the parking lot, and in underground parking lot, which has been turned into a um, basically an entire city uh, full of pet supplies, diapers, toys, hats, shoes, purses, anything you can imagine, because the Israel 200,000 Israelis have been displaced because of this war, and they had to leave with like one suitcase in that day, and they're going to be here for months potentially, and so they don't have winter clothes, they don't have so many things, and um, something I wrote about in my uh, rabbinical school thesis was about how progressive rabbinical students during the Yom Kippur War left school um, to pick fruit on farms in place of soldiers who were fighting, and did what they could for the volunteer effort. And so we spent 4 hours in this place, uh, organizing shoes and hats, sorting them by type, throwing out defective ones, and sorting them by size and age appropriateness, and what's a girl's shoe, boy's shoe, et cetera, et cetera. And we spent 4 hours doing that. That was really powerful. Um, and then uh, and I realized this is something that probably I'll be telling my grandkids about. And then finally, the last thing we did was we went to um, we went to a Reform Center in Reform Jewish Center in Jaffa, and uh, we met with a bunch of young people who, instead of joining the army right after high school, are doing a year of national civil service in another way. That's a common thing to do in Israel. Is instead of going straight into the army, doing that, and and 80 of these people a year are assigned to actually work for the Israel Movement of Progressive Judaism in different different NGOs. 80 go to there and they learn about progressive Judaism. Some of them actually have become progressive rabbis in Israel, and and they have now been um, and the Reform Kibbutzim and in these centers, uh, picking up for where soldiers have gone off to war, for the reserves. They've been helping babysit for some of these families, et cetera, et cetera. And they told me that in the past month, they've invented a new word in Israel, and this is what my friend Neta will talk about some, and that's shigra. You heard this? Yeah. So shigra, shigra is um, shigra means routine. It's a biblical Hebrew word, but that's with a hey at the end. What Israelis are saying now is shigra with an ayin at the end, and it's a compound word between shigra and ra, which means bad. So the bad routine they've all become accustomed to, with sirens and different things. Um, and what these folks were saying was that what these folks were saying was that um, uh, it's their friends who were at the music festival. It's their friends who didn't do the year of service, but rather are going straight into the army, who are now in Gaza. And it's made them all the more so want to join the army next year. And also, what they were saying too is that this youth generation didn't know they'd be in a war. Um, they figured, and I'm not talking like an operation like we've seen over the last decade in Gaza. They thought that war, like Yom Kippur War, 6 Day War, that was a thing of the 60s and 70s. Those days were past. and every single one of them had known somebody who was kidnapped or killed. So that's my day. I'm actually going to turn it over to one of my dearest friends, Neta Kitsoni. Neta I got to know Neta when I was 19 years old and I was on Birthright, and she was one of the soldiers on our group, in our group, and she became one of my dearest friends, and we have uh, traveled the world together. We see each other several times a year, and everything. And so Neta is not only lives in Tel Aviv, but she's a walking Tel Aviv stereotype in so many ways. And but I figured she could tell us a little bit about her perspectives as an Israeli, and also what daily life is like here in Tel Aviv.
Hi, hi everyone. Yeah, nice to see you all. Thank you, Sam, for letting me talk to you guys. It's definitely refreshing for me. Since well, I'll introduce myself first. My name is Neta Kitani. I'm from Tel Aviv. I'm 35 years old. I work for an NGO, a local NGO in Israel. We developed an online platform for volunteering that basically is used by a lot of big business companies in Israel. If they want the employees of the company to volunteer to do some good, then they use our platform. So as you can imagine, during this time of war, I've been working 18 or 20 hours a day, because like Sam said, and I think he told you very accurately, um, our country since October 7 is pretty much run by us, the citizens of Israel. Um, there's a saying in Hebrew, I hope I can translate it as well as Sam does, but we say in Hebrew, באין מדינה יש אזרחים, which means when the government fails, there are people. And the people of Israel, and I'm so glad that Sam told you what he told you, because we basically took over. We are doing everything, and when I say everything, I do mean everything. Starting with evacuating people who were held at gunpoint or locked in their houses on that Saturday. So until the army got there, until the official forces got there, civilians, people, citizens, actually got in their cars, went down south, and rescued people. A lot of time, it cost them their lives. And I can tell you, I mean, when we say we know a guy who knows a guy in Israel, everyone knows everyone. And of course, I know a lot of people who've been at the party, or my family in the South, or we've been affected directly. But I decided when Sam asked me to talk to you that I'm not gonna, tell you all the gory details. I think. Yeah, oh, you told him. He said he told you a lot yesterday. Okay, sorry, I was trying to spare you. Because right now we're focused on rebuilding. While we are fighting, while I have friends and family in the military right now in Gaza or in the north, us who stayed behind are rebuilding. We are rebuilding this country. We are rebuilding the institutions. We are rebuilding the facilities. We're rebuilding even the most basic things, like the things you take for granted, the thing your country you just assume happens automatically. I'm not just talking about military stuff. I'm talking about maybe, mental support. If someone is affected by such a terrible event, you would guess that all the systems, would come together. And it took such a long time for the government to send people to even, talk to the people who were had to leave their homes behind, or had such terrible, terrible things happen to them. But it's not because the people who work in the government are bad. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is we let the systems of our country go just a bit more corrupt than we could afford as a small country surrounded by enemies. Is not a cliche anymore, I guess. So this is what we're doing. This is what the NGO I work for tries to do. And Sam mentioned also Achim Laneshek. So I can tell you that up until 2 months ago, Achim Laneshek was the main organization which helped us rally together on the protests, which I proudly took a big part of, to try and make sure that our country stays a democratic state, stays on the right side of uh, of the world, as we say. And because we were so well organized in those protests, that's what allowed us to take that infrastructure and civilian infrastructure, really, and very quickly turn into an infrastructure of help, of aid, of you need someone, to organize everything. You assume the systems of your country will do it. Once we realize they're not, then we're just doing it ourselves. And I guess most people I know, my family and my friends, this is what we do now. We all contribute in our way, in what we're good at, to try to rebuild the country while fighting. And,
Something I asked Neta also if she could talk about. So we've known that rockets are a big part of reality for Israelis for the past 17 years. And that's something I've intellectually and conceptually known. This is the first time I've actually, even though I go to Israel a couple times a year and I lived here for over a year, this is the first time I've been here where I've expected to have to go to shelter. I haven't yet, but I'm still expecting to at some point. But uh, I'm much more cognizant of how disruptive it is to life. How when I go to a restaurant, uh, I have we have to ask where is the shelter. If we're driving somewhere, like what do we do if the rocket hits? Or even sorry, this TMI. When I was in the bathroom today, I was like, I really hope there's not a siren while I'm in the bathroom, and that is like daily life for Israeli. So I was hoping you could talk a bit. Neta is not from the South, so she didn't have that. Thank God, horrific story that I shared yesterday from that man from Barry, and that I'll hear tomorrow from a group from Nahal Oz. But what is daily life like for you, and how has October 7th changed your life forever?
Well, I think I'm going to start by saying that I know it's going to sound very dramatic, but everything that's happening here is, and feels very dramatic. So basically, personally, but I also think it's most of the people I know, my friends and family and people around me. Our lives pretty much ended that day. Yeah, I told you it's gonna sound dramatic, but it did. We had this like strong core of beliefs that I never had to worry about my family, the ones in the south living next to the Gaza border, because we all knew it's something that we never had to think about. We all knew nothing is gonna happen because once something happened, it's gonna be over for the other side pretty fast. That day we felt crushed, we felt beaten, we felt humiliated. Um, I don't think I'm gonna be the same as a person because everything that happened to me before feels less significant. Like if something made me very, very happy, I spent the last, I think at least the first 3 weeks of the war, constantly thinking, oh, I'm never gonna be happy again. This is what it feels like. This is the end. This is what my grandparents told me about the Holocaust and escaping Europe and all the horrors that for me they were in the past. And all I could think about was, okay, so this is how it goes. This is how it ends, basically, for us. So if something made me happy before, that's not a happy thing anymore. If something made me sad before, then it doesn't seem that sad now. It feels stupid. Why was I so sad about that? It changes you as a person. I think it changes your core. I mean, um, if you would have been, I told Sam before that if he was here like 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago even, walk around the streets of Tel Aviv, it felt like, during COVID lockdowns, everything is closed. But even when things started to open up and people started to go a bit more outside, everyone's so sad. This is not a sad city. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Tel Aviv, and if not, I hope you'll come and visit us. I think it's one of the most amazing cities in the world, really. And a big part of it is due to the people, the vibe, the thing we tried to create here in the Middle East. And for a long while, we thought that we did it. We did it. We created this bubble in this area. Everything was so sad. And I would go outside with my dog or go down to the grocery store, and none of my neighbors would be like talking. It was a big wave of depression, pretty much. But like I said before, and this is what I started, I think now soon we will begin our role towards hope. And the thing we're used to doing, for example, Sam started this conversation with you, and I thought, oh, it's gonna be one of those times. Usually when I have work, you know, um, conversations on Zoom, the missiles alarms in Israel, I don't know if you know this, but they're very accurate. If you hear the missile alarm, it's only in your area within your city. But sometimes you hear a missile alarm from far away area, and you wonder, like, is it here? Is it like the northern neighborhood? Is it close to me? Should I go down to the shelter? I don't feel like it. So I usually have appointments with people from all over the country, and during 1 hour meeting, at least two or three or three of those people would leave and suddenly disappear because they have to go down or enter a safe room or a bomb shelter, depending what they have in their house, for 10 minutes and come back, and everyone treats this as a normal thing. And I was so surprised that Sam did not start this conversation with you by saying, oh, and when you hear the alarm, that's okay. Tell us when you get back, which is what we say in conversation. We're just so used to it. And walking down the street, well, I talked to Sam about it because I have to keep reminding myself that this is not a natural way of thinking because I'm so used to it. But if one side of the street is all, let's say, clothes stores or barber shops, and they usually have here, they usually have big glass walls. So I would not walk on that side. I would walk on the other side of the street where it's more residential buildings. So when the alarm catches me, I have like 90 seconds. Sorry, I wish I had 90 minutes. So I have like a minute and a half to enter someplace safe. So I should walk on the side of the street that allows me to enter a building and join the people living there, whether if they have a bomb shelter in the basement of the building, because central Tel Aviv is mostly buildings. And if they don't have it, then we go to the second floor because that's the safest. And me and Sam, we kept talking about it, and we kept asking him, okay, so do you know what to do if there's a missile alarm and you're in the car? Do you know what to do if there's a missile alarm if you're in the road? And he said, yes, of course, they explained to us when we got here. And I thought, well, they explained me about that in kindergarten. I have to remind myself all the time that this is not something that most people experience. And I'm really glad that most people don't experience that. We just grew up with it, we treat it as something that's normal. I was born during the start of the Intifada, so which means that yeah, Sam just called me old, just so you'll know. I'm telling you. He said that I should tell you that I mean the first Intifada and not the second because I'm old. Thank you, Sam. I know a lot of stories too.
Well, this is Mariah, and I can remember the 1967 war, Six-Day War. So you're both very young.
So Sam,
Yeah, I want to make sure we get this first. So, it's from the waiting room. Well, so much. So I want to just see because we've been talking at you for like 45 minutes. Did you all have questions or comments for me or? Yeah, do you have questions or comments for me or Neta? If not, I have. Yeah, let's see. Evan, do you have one? Go ahead.
I thank both of you for being here today, and thank you especially Neta for sharing what your day-to-day reality is. And but we do hope that it becomes a more positive reality. Especially then for the both of you, I had a question that may not relate directly from our discussion, but I'm curious what you have seen or heard or perspective of the non-Jewish citizens of Israel. I know, for example, in Tel Aviv, many of the shop owners are Arab Israelis or Christian Israelis. And what are you seeing of their impact?
Well, a big part of Tel Aviv city is, of course, Jaffa, which is mostly Muslim populated. And what I was really happy to see, not only in Jaffa, but in other places, for example, the town where my parents live, there's an Arab Muslim village very close by. And in all of those places, they started very quickly to also organize in civilian aid infrastructures, like the place Sam volunteered at today. So there's one in Jaffa, and there's one in Kfar Kasem, and there's one in Kalkilia, and all these places that we thought, I don't know what you're gonna do now. Suddenly had these like amazing groups of people, Jews, by the way, and Christian and Muslims working together. And this is not Tel Aviv, which is very much a bubble. These are places of conflict usually. Whenever there was some tension, there was an operation, a limited operation, a mini war, as we call it in Gaza, my parents would stop going buy groceries from the next Arab village, even though that it's cheaper. You know, there's always been these tensions, and suddenly we see so many people coming together and creating these functions of help. That's amazing. Now, of course, there are other voices. There are people trying to steer on both sides, trying to steer the pots. And basically, I feel that's so sad because I see what we can be in here with I'm talking about, of course, the Israeli Arabs, the Israeli Muslim population. There are extreme voices. I'm scared of them personally. I don't know if we can handle another Shomer Chomot. I don't know how it was called in English when there was um, well, a year ago we had the crisis where a lot of what we call the mixed cities like Akko and Haifa, cities where there are a lot of Jews and Muslims, and the Muslims started, rioting, and it was this big thing, and we were so scared of it. But now look at how much time we are into this war. It's a lot of time, and mostly I think people are trying to do something together instead of apart. And I just hope the radical voices are not going to steer everything up again. That's the thing I'm mostly scared of.
And I'll say at the city, the thing where I volunteered, there were Filipino people who were there volunteering who live in Israel, but also there was a person with I hope I get the politically correct terminology. I apologize if I don't. But there was a young man with severe intellectual disabilities and was not verbal, and he was walking around, and it was really hot in that underground parking lot, really stuffy, and there was cardboard, and there was sneezing. It was like not a fun experience. And he was walking around for all 4 hours with a tray of water, giving water to people. And one of the volunteers told me he comes here every single day for 6 hours and walks around distributing water to the volunteers. And like that was incredible to see. Were there other questions or Colin? Yeah. Mariah, I see your hand.
Yes. Uh, I want to, first of all, I want to tell Neta that it's such an honor to have you take the time to speak to us. And, you're absolutely lovely. And you're heroic to us. And we just, our hearts were with you, of course, right from the beginning.
Yes, I can see her head going like this. She's going to now come on to all of our Zoom calls.
I will.
And so, you're very much, I personally just feel, I wish I could, and Rabbi Sam will tell you, if I could reach through cyberspace and give you an enormous bear hug, I would. Yeah, and of course, many condolences for all, the losses you are suffering and you continue to suffer.
Let me just ask on that note really quickly, Neta, because it is such a small country, do you know people who are kidnapped and killed on October 7th? Yeah. And the answer I give for everyone. Of course I do. Thanks.
Yes, of
go on.
course. Yeah, and what I would like to know, my question really is that my my Bashert, my Brian, and I, we very much want to come over to Israel and help, and but we don't know who to connect with. We don't want to be in the way, Brian, and we don't know if they're is our organizations that we can contact in terms of talking to and skill sets, and whatever. Could you point me to a resource for that?
Yeah, sure.
Well, you-
Oh yeah, but I'm saying, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of organizations that help people who come from abroad want to volunteer in Israel. It
Yeah.
depends on what kind of volunteering you want to do, but there are a lot of them, and I can
Okay.
of course give Sam a list, and so he can give that
Okay,
to you, and
that's
you
perfect.
see if any of that fits you. And of course, these organizations are doing an amazing job, and I would love to support them.
Okay.
If I just tell them that I gave your
Yeah,
contact to someone, they're gonna be
perfect.
very happy. So thank you.
Brian
by the
knows
way,
how to
Great.
build
That's-
things. Yeah,
I
he
work
knows
with
how to
people with
build.
disabilities, so I would love to know what organizations. I know they have occupational
yeah,
therapists out
this
there
is
in
an
Israel.
occupational therapist.
Well,
And my pediatrician father also is desperately trying to. Oh, because everybody's rejected him so far. So you've met my dad, you can understand. Anyways, but
It's going to be a very long list because there will be a lot of organizations that will need that kind.
yeah, and yeah, no, that'd be great. And in any way that we can help, or even maybe even help via Zoom if we can't go to Israel, like do Zoom sessions. So that's the
we need somebody. In my case, I need someone to foot the bill for the flight, and then I can volunteer over there.
Let me plug in my computer really fast. So. There we go. Yeah, no, that's great. And, so that is a good resource for that stuff. Couple of shout outs I just want to give on here really fast. A couple of people to see on here. Christy Schemper, nice to see you. Christy works with Zion's Bank, and I want you to know that when I was making a donation, where did my wallet go? When I was making a donation for my discretionary fund to a nonprofit today that was on the ground, I held up my card so that they could do it, and they got so excited. They were like, "You have a bank called Zion's?" And I was like, "We do actually." So, shout out to Zion's Bank. So you can let people know about that, Christy. Good to see you. Hope you're well. And Charlie Goodman, I want you to know, and Neta can vouch for this. Captain Charlie is the one who gave us the Captain Goodman. She gave us the stickers for thing. Neta and I literally had to break up a fight in the elevator. There was a little girl who's actually Ethiopian Jewish who is from Sderot, who was about 2 years old, and I gave her a sticker, one of the stickers you gave, and she put it on and was so proud of it. And then we rode up and she ran up the stairs, so excited. And then Neta and I hopped in the elevator and we went up 2 floors, and the elevator door opened, and there she was with her brother, who was probably about 3, 4 years old, bigger than her, like literally tried to rip the sticker off of her and sobbing, crying because he didn't get a sticker, and their parents trying to break up this fight. of him. And I said, wait, I've got another sticker, and that is how we brought peace to the elevator situation. So the kids are Neta has seen firsthand a lot of the kids being very
Yeah.
excited by
A
our.
lot of kids here in the hotel are excited about the stickers. They love it.
It looks like we have a lot of very miniature Salt Lake
Yeah.
Police Department officers walking around. So thank
That's
you.
awesome. We are hiring. So
Oh, good.
Oh.
There you go. They'd be good. They'd be good. Like I said, these Ethiopian kids were like throwing down, so they're tough. Anyhow, did y'all have any other questions? If not, I'll conclude with one question for Neta. But any other final questions? Yeah, Captain.
uh,
Goodman.
I have only been able to join these late. Is there a way to get the recordings from
Yeah,
yesterday and today?
you have my email, right? I'm uploading them onto YouTube for people who can't see them, so I'll send them to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Stay
By
safe.
the way, that's part of the Neta probably knows much more than I do what a siren sounds like, but every time I hear like some loud noise outside, I'm like, is that a siren? Then I go, oh wait, no, it wasn't. So
Valerian root.
oh, hang on.
It's actually
Neta,
Derek?
thank you very much for joining us. That was very, very warm, and hugs to you from the United States.
And so I want to end on a positive note. Neta, I tease Neta a lot. She teases me a lot. We have a relationship that's very deeply based on teasing. And every single time I hang out with Neta in Tel Aviv, and Neta, by the way, was very involved in the protest movements against the judicial reform. Neta will sit there sipping her coffee like a true Tel Aviv person and be like, this country is going to hell. It is falling apart. Screw this country. I might leave to go to Europe. I might as well. This country is worthless and stuff. And like such a Tel Aviv cliche thing to say. Anyways, and Neta, how has this war affected you and your Zionism and views of Israel? And I am recording this.
no, you're recording this. He's gonna make me go dramatic again. This time it's not my choice. Like I said, different person today, and actually let my husband know that the relocation plans that we been planning and working on before are canceled because we have to stay here and we have to build this place from the ground. It is completely crushed. We are completely crushed. But I don't know if you heard, but there are tens or even hundreds of thousands of Israelis that the minute the war started, they hopped on planes from all over the world, whether they yeah, coming from Utah. Yeah. No matter if they're traveling or living abroad, like I was planning to do the following year. And they came here. They came here about the hundreds of thousands, joined the army. I don't know if you heard about any place in the universe where there's a war and all the citizens just fighting each other over expensive plane tickets to get back as fast as they can. So what I told Sam, what he what he knows that I usually don't say is this is my home. I'm gonna fight for it, and I'm gonna be here as part of the people who are going to build it, and we are going to build it better. We're not healing yet. We're very, very sad, but we're very, very strong. And I think our enemies always underestimate that. I don't know why. They never fully understand us. They think they do, and they think because we were protesting and against our government and everything, and so once something starts, we're all gonna do, go back to Europe like they tell us to do, even though most of us are from, Arab countries or Northern Africa, but that's not the point. They didn't understand us that the minute they started something that our existence is threatened, we dropped everything. We dropped all the protest signs and stopped fighting each other like idiots on Twitter, and we just all flew back home and started fighting them. That's what they don't get about Jewish people, about Israeli people. They just don't get it. Like, we can be scattered, we can fight each other, but it's like when I fight my sister, that's okay. I can call her names and I can do whatever. But if someone else does that, I will basically kill them, because only I can fight my brothers and sisters, and nobody else is allowed to do that. So no relocation to Europe for me for now. But like I told Sam, he's been here so many times, yet I have never been to Utah, and I hope that will happen as soon as I can.
Better. And by the way, Neta was actually going through the whole process to get citizenship, EU citizenship. And one of the things that I forgot to mention that the hostage center is doing is they are they are signing people up for any way they can for any of the hostages, trying to get them citizenship elsewhere, because you know, when with Gilad Shalit, it was like a thing that he had was all not just an Israeli citizen, but had dual French citizenship. So all of a sudden, we can then tell those countries, you know, this person is also a Brazilian citizen or a Canadian citizen, whatever. It then puts pressure on those governments which have a responsibility for their own people. And by the way, it is absolutely bonkers that of the 240 people hostage, 12 of them at least are American citizens, and that's not on the front page of every American newspaper every day. That 12 Americans are being held hostage by a terrorist organization. So yeah. Anyhow, that is going to conclude my daily briefing. My colleagues said that I'm making them look bad because none of them are doing this, but I really enjoyed it. And I'm so grateful, all of you, like not only coming on, but so many of you stayed the whole hour. So thank you. So I'll do this again tomorrow. I am, by the way, in the last 3 days, I'm running off of 8 hours of sleep over 3 days total, and yet I'm like so jazzed and energized because like it's just so inspiring to be here right now. And so yeah, uh anyways, so thank you all, and God bless, and
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah,
תודה רבה. תודה רבה. עם
and
ישראל חי. עם ישראל חי.
Am Yisrael Chai, and I will
So,
hopefully see a bunch of you tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to a town north of here, where we are going to visit with the entire surviving community, I should say, of Nahal Oz, which was a town in the Gaza border that was subjected to a massacre, and now the survivors have relocated to this village north of here. So we're going there tomorrow. So, and I'm sure we'll have some powerful stories. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.